Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to this evening's episode. The title is When Worlds Are Meant to Merge. For me, something that has fascinated uh, my attention is that how I'm being here. That means I can tell you that there's so many questions in this world you can ask, but the question, who am I, that is like Excalibur. It's a question that only at the right time and the right moment one can really pull out Excalibur from the stone. So, I wanted to say that our attention is on the self as a human being. And so, just like we can see a person and their personality change throughout the years, how a person is being changes in this universe, you can say the world that that self is in also changes. Now, if we were to compare selves, a sense of self to another sense of self, technically that would be close to memory and imagination. So the relationship of senses of self between one another, let's say memory for now, and we can say the relationship, and the main focus of this episode is the relationship of worlds with one another. And that's really what I wanted to speak about. From the individualism of this creature has arose a duality of higher worlds and lesser worlds. So you can say before this creature was conscious of itself as an individual, I mean the animal, uh, the evolving animal, before the evolving animal was conscious of itself, there was no world, like there was no awareness to a world. It was only when the individual could stabilize itself that choice could be implemented. And it's like this view that everything from the beginning has been natural and true, and it is man who is uh, painting his picture over nature, or creating his own film in a film that man is in already. So, from self came a world. The awareness realized that is a dualism. The first dualism was with the self, you can say. That means after this creature became an individual, it saw how it could exist. Excuse me. Pretty much what I'm trying to say, after a stable point of self, after the first point of reference, then there came a view of, you can imagine like the evolutionary animal, and it's becoming like night and day constantly. Imagine you fast forwarded evolution like a film. So this on and off switch effect of the solar system, the place where we're positioned in the solar system, is inspiring the dualism of this creature being able to see and not see. So when we look at human psychology, we can't just relate it to what is full. It's like so much of our moments are also made of our absence in the moment. You know, it's like when you look at an animal in nature, it goes through various cycles, you know, in the conscious waking state. Even its behaviors are, for example, the animal plays, the animal gets violent in certain situations, you know, the animal gets bored, the animal yawns, the animal sleeps. And what I'm trying to say is that it's as if like one being, multiple ways of being activated. So from the relationship of 0 and 1, one became aware of itself. It became one, you can say, being aware of its own reflection, in some sense becoming two, poetically. So what I'm trying to say is that we don't freak out when we wonder about an individual changing. We don't freak out when we wonder about an individual growing. But when it comes to worlds, we have freaked out in mythology, even that there has been wars between the dimensions, between collective, you can say, attributeless beings, and you can say the children of form. There is so much to this world that surpasses a story. And really, the human being, what wisdom can say is that treat yourself like a candle. And what that means is you illuminate what you go around. That means it's like if this world is too big for us to have a static belief on it. But it's so dynamic and it's so changing. It's like, really? We all think it's that easy that in one view, just you open your eyes and you got it right. When doubt doubts itself, the truth of the void appears. Honestly, I feel that our species is going on such a unique path that the relationship we find, and this is a very unique statement I'm going to make, but the relationship we find in, you can say, religious, monotheistic religious texts, or even certain polytheistic texts, but in the monotheistic religious sense, you can say from a theological view, the voice of truth seems to be not going to only man, but to man and another. As if man is not alone in this room, there are others here, we just do not see them, or we cannot see them, or we don't know how to multidimensionally conceptualize it when we think we only have to be what we see in the mirror. So, this relationship between worlds and voices in worlds is so profound that I can tell you that there are certain, when I look at an ideological system, honestly, I'm looking at geometry for me. So when I look at the geometry of how religious ideology, or you can say the line of the Abrahamic traditions, has in some sense explained the other dimensions, is that in some sense the position of the soul is the significance. That means there is the archetype of the human being, then there is the archetype of the angel, then there is the archetype of, for example, lesser beings, in language, for example, demons and devils and whatnot. So this was the sort of landscape that was given. And in the theological sense, the idea of the fallen angel is in some sense as if angels are the archetype of, in some sense, having no will of their own. So you can say before, theologically, man was made, there was an what should I say? pretty much what I'm trying to say is all of these ideas brought forth a classification of truth, a sort of multidimensionalizing of truth upon the fall of man, upon the first mistake. I would say that the correlation I saw, that in the subtitle people would see I've written angels and cyberspace. I feel cyberspace is going to literally be the archaic revival of the idea of, this may be a bit intense, but the archetype of the demon. And I wanted to share why. It's that, you see, in the theological sense, the whole reason I'm sharing all of this from a theological view with the audience is because I want to say, in this classification of different levels of creaturehood or life or games of God, you can say, it is as if there are levels where there is no choice, there are levels where there is choice, and then there are levels where it's as if there is, again, no choice. You know, so two types of no choice at all, you know? And what I mean by that is that, for example, there is the angel, which is the will. Literally, it is the. I'm singing. I wish I had a chalkboard, but. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that in a theological context, the idea of the demon, the archetype, I would say, the archetype of the demon was soulless. And for a second, I thought about, in the future, what does a soulless entity mean? Because the reality is that we think that, if from a theological view, we think that it is divine law. So technically, a religious person never existed. It's all God moving from the beginning. You know? So if the will, if the movement, if the source of the movement is, one can say, beyond the world, then you can say, to think of, that means if in this moment we're saying we have a soul, you can say an entity, a program is like a demon. A cyberspace, soulless, that means it's artificial, it's pixelated. I'm trying to say that the virtual, the hollow, the archetypes would pretty much come down to, there was one ultimate unity, and when this one ultimate unity, somehow man could not be aware of it. I don't know how even oneness can make a mistake, but from this, singularity, man fell. Man made a mistake, and it is strange that when man fell, in the revelation of holy text, it is said God is merciful and whatnot, but God could not forgive man's first mistake. So it is this strange situation where people are technically, in regards to the theological context, worshipping a truth that is all forgiving, yet the truth could not forgive the first mistake. Now the issue becomes that, could the first mistake not have been a mistake? Could it be that all the stories that we have from ancient times still echo towards our ear, that we are animating? Could it be that they are, in some sense, actually qualia? Qualia is a philosophical term where it's similar to. Sorry guys, my throat is a bit. I'm saying that qualia is like an inner experience. It's like a thought event. We tend to treat thought like Lego, like pieces. But I would say there's something that man's mind is wondering about truth. And I feel the search will go on. Now, let's say, I don't know, 200 years from now, 120 years from now, children open their eyes in cyberspace. Imagine a child is born in cyberspace Now imagine in that cyberspace program, okay, there's a child who, okay, perfect example. Someone in reality, natural life, they go into a cyberspace program. In the cyberspace virtual reality program, imagine there is a school. They go inside that school, they sit in a classroom, and out of their classmates, out of 10 classmates, let's say, 3 of them actually have souls, which means they are from the outer. They are, excuse me, they are from the inner realms of the cyberspace realm. So what I mean by that is that it's as if those 3 people, those 3 natural human beings who went into the cyberspace program, and those classmates who were artificial, who were simulated, could be AI programs and whatnot, they would be like demons to the character in cyberspace. What I'm saying is it's a dimension where it's as if the source the source of the being has embraced has knows it's artificial deep down. When it knows it's artificial deep down, it's literally like a fire that knows it's going to go out. But when it comes to, you can say, again, from a theological view, to God's law, to divine law, now that becomes something that I would say it's as if the more you go closer to oneness, which love seems to be like the archetypal vacuum cleaner. What that means is, in some sense, love is like, you can say, one of the most efficient filters to look at nature. Because when a person loves something, they trust their space. When they trust their space, they actually get to see things. But if a person, let's say they hate the world, or they think this is a bad place, or they think it's just a playground for chaos, or it's like duality is out of control to the end of time, it is, I will tell you, the unknown is God. Unknown. When unknown movement moves the known, you can say it is, call it divinity, call it mystery, call it whatever you like. It is that which is here, but not to us. And it is here to us, you can say, in certain proportions, as if it's an energetic, as if it's an antenna. There is this view that it's like divinity has resonance, and so, for example, in the theological perspective, where there was the angel Lucifer, the angel Lucifer, and he falls and he becomes the devil and Satan and all that. So that archetype, technically, it's an angel, means it has access to divine law. It has access to a pitch, a frequency, a unique radio channel. Do you know? So for me, what I feel like it could be that we were literally pushed off from a singular radio channel. Imagine you turned the channel of your car's radio and you were experiencing oneness with everything. Imagine you changed the channel again and suddenly you were dualism, endless enemies, endless friends, just this endless game of archetypal collisions. The most important thing a human being can do on this planet is to, in some sense, make the world your ally. But you cannot do that at first. Why? Because yourself is dictating the world. So you must make yourself an ally. But then you think, what is this self? How do you make yourself an ally? You see that the self is a behavior. You can say it's a movement of mind. Last night I got a very profound insight, and it was so ridiculous. It was like in the middle of a doorway. I was just passing through one room to another, and in the middle I just suddenly got this insight that, hey, wait a minute, my mind, you can say the brain, it's literally like the mind is reinventing itself in every moment. And if the mind is reinventing itself in the moment in accordance to attention, that literally means, imagine a laser beam. Imagine you have one of those laser beam things, and a cat is chasing the laser beam wherever you point it. And it feels to me that there is a presence of an attention. We say it is a man's soul in the fog of the mind, you know. Man's soul standing in the fog of the mind. The mist that surrounds the mystic, yet it becomes, in some sense, the divine gift. People fear what they do not know, and people fear what they also know. And so it seems to me that whether you know or you don't know, fear is unnecessary. Sincerity is more of a priority than fear being necessary or not. But I'm saying what I am trying to say, folks, first of all, welcome to the chat section. I'm trying to say that the world and what we call the mind are like two marathon runners. They're running side by side. Now, we start off having access to the most dense state of being. That means you can feel like, all right, you're a human being on a planet. You can just have that physical snapshot photo, you know? Or you can just say, wait a minute, if my whole life I have felt I am just a body, and I have moved in, and I say I have a mind, you know, or we say the person found their mind or they lost their mind, you know. So if the person is saying I'm a body my whole life, moving a mind, could I be a mind moving a body? And that means for the first time, everything you have believed. Let me tell you, knowledge is not memorization. It doesn't make sense because the contexts change in accordance to every experience the person goes through. And so it is strange that I found this in the mystical path. For me, there was something in Tibetan Buddhism, in yoga, it was like I felt I found a mirror before I was born. I felt like I looked into a mirror that was here before I was born, really. And I will say that right now, the game of the human being is selfhood. And how do we know this? By just the activity of human beings as individuals. Because if we were truly collective, it could render individual biological bodyhood as meaningless. Not meaningless, but unnecessary. You see, the mind is local to the body. That is why we're being human, you know? But if the mind somehow is non-local to the body, it doesn't imply that the brain is not here. It implies the brain is an antenna. Therefore, the signal that is becoming consciousness in every moment is not from here. You see, the world became real too quick. And so when the world becomes real, once the conditions are solidified, you cannot escape it. Not that you cannot escape it, it's like ordering a pizza, and then when the pizza comes to your door, you're like, I don't need this, I didn't do this, I didn't order this, you know, but you know, there's a consequence. Today we are a self. Tomorrow we will be a world. Today we are the self of the world. Tomorrow we will be the world of the self. I feel that we have accepted imagery too soon. We are invisible, I shouldn't say invisible, but we are attributeless watchers. Treat yourself as just attention and energy. Anytime I have fear, I go to this simple level. That means anytime I find myself in a situation too overwhelming, the pressures, it doesn't matter what it is, but just the pressures are too much, that I feel if I continue, it's as if like there's no point of walking against the river, you know. I take it down to a design level, and when you take things down to a design level, there is no emotion, so there is no karma. What if human beings one day realize that mindhood is an emotion, but it is like an emotion that has always been there? In the Vedas, excuse me, not in the Vedas, no, actually in the Vedas, I don't know if it's the Upanishads or the Vedas, but there's this idea that just like how space was here before matter, as we suppose, it's as if mind was here before body. And so, because of language, the body is trying to be a mind. That is called ego. But when your mind realizes the body can never be as advanced as it, then the body settles. Then you become a watcher of your own life. And not with eyes that can guess. That's the coolest part of living. You know, we may look at a human being and be like, yo, this human being planned so ahead. Oh my God, what an advanced human being. But I will tell you, that's not an advanced human being. The advanced human being is the explorer. For me, that is like my, I would say, non-dual supermodel. Excuse me, role model. It's an oscillation between feeling self came first, then world, and then world came first, then self. If you feel world came first, then self, you automatically go to oneness. It's like you have no choice. If you feel self came first, then world, that is infinity. So you can say nature is just being here, and as we move, we are instantaneously becoming without realizing it. And I can personally tell, because when I give these talks, every word I say, if there's an image in my inner realms that arises for it, that image, it causes a sort of response. That means if I suddenly remember a moment in summer where I was running, it's not that I feel warm, it's not that the body gets warmer, but it's just the mind doesn't feel the cold, as if the attention, like you have a certain amount of attention, and this attention, if it goes completely on, let's say heat, you don't suddenly realize the cold, you know. You see, the issue is it's a perversion. Sorry, let me say it like this. What I feel is happening is that language is perverting direct experience, and human beings, the only way it happens is when you take the language for the reality. That means when we look at that word, for example, perversion, it is not just in regards to sexuality. I would say it's anything that the mind doesn't let go of, as if like it's something held on more than its time, as if you can say ideas naturally, their life cycle should be like the idea arises to you, and then you have a conscious choice. You notice the idea before it was here, and then after, and then I am simply saying that when you realize this world is not a story, you will look in the mirror, and if you don't know, if you realize, you might know how your body looks like when you see the mirror. You might even have some sort of diary or journal and have a story of life. But I will tell you, the most fascinating thing I've ever seen in the mirror is the question, who is looking right now? You don't know how many times I have like paused this video game of life in random, just various moments, spontaneous moments in my life where I have paused the whole video game, even my cell phone, and just, it's in some sense, it's just, you wonder about your own source and you don't fear your eyes. And there is no greater advice that can be given on a battlefield. It's a linguistic battlefield. It's not a battlefield where everybody's just physically just shooting each other. People are shooting each other with conception, with ideology, with images. We are literally image generators. What that means is when two people speak, what are they doing? They're decoding what image the other person is talking about. You know? It's like, what is that person saying? You see, I feel that the belief in God is an excuse to not experience it. Because what you experience, you no longer need to believe. It's as if you believe, like, I don't know, your shower has hot water. You believe, but you don't know. You take a shower and you're like, where's the hot water? And maybe it comes, maybe it doesn't. But now you know. And this is the power of knowledge. That understanding, they say, makes things easier. So when you understand something, you navigate easier through it. Right now, check this out. We've built a civilization telling everybody to work hard, but understanding makes things easy. So technically, if everybody's working hard, nobody's understanding anything. You know. And what I mean by working hard is, I mean accepting too soon your role, or I would say, um, letting yourself become a character in a story too soon. And think of the vastness of the world. I say this idea of, like, imagine two types of multidimensionality. We have a cake that is cut into pieces, and then we have like a whole cake, and then there's a bunch of other cakes, you know. So it's as if like there's a multidimensionality of how there are different worlds, and there's a multidimensionality of how one world has fragmented into senses of self. Now the mystery of why is there duality in the first place? That means, imagine you you saw chaos and order dancing, like till the end of time, and let's say time was your friend, and you're like, hey time, let's go see why chaos and order are dancing, you know and you go see that chaos and order, they can only dance because there is a place to dance. That means chaos and order are sponsored. There's no such thing as chaos and order. When I say it's sponsored, that means there's no such thing as chaotic and ordered beings. Sometimes I feel, could the human being be an ant on an anthill, and could there be higher dimensional intelligence that maybe we can't fathom? Like, we're in the two dimensions, and this is like a three-dimensional intelligence. I feel that literally we are seeing that relationship of the angel being the will of the whole thing, the demon being the ignorance of the whole thing, and man being somewhere in between. So technically, it means man is in between divine clarity and divine ignorance, which means we are standing inside a portal. This is a portal. This whole dimension is a portal. It's like a bridge between two islands. Does it exist? Does it have a location? It exists between the two, but it doesn't exist on its own. And I feel that's what's happening. Attention is evolving beyond itself. That's what evolution means. Evolution means the creature got tired of moving with four limbs. Evolution means this creature stood up and wore clothing and began to speak. Evolution means from everything that this creature has attained, it will stand up again. And this is why hope is that powerful resonance. I find that in any situation, in any film, or whenever, if the director's done their job properly, that hope will feel collective. Like I feel that moment where Superman is like, or I don't know, some character, some superhero is like beating the bad guy that's trying to end the world, and everybody's like, oh my god, you know, thank god this fiction worked out. I feel we should only call ourselves, sleeping giants. We are a giant sleeping species. And so it's so cool. That means now it's slow, but I feel in the next, I don't know, let's say century, there will be such profound transformation, such freedom. Pretty much the world is going to be divided into rooms. That means people are just going to realize that wherever they are first in their own rooms. They are inside their mind. So you start off in this life inside your mind. To go outside of your mind means the whole moment has to be the viewer. That means that it can't be any relationship between the content. So it's as if the more we go towards a singular truth, the less there is a game to play. The more we go to dualistic truth, there is an endless, just balanced game to play. And beyond duality, when we go to the infinite, trust me, some people feel that there's cruelty here in this realm of ours. Like, for example, people are cruel to animals or whatever. But let me tell you, there is a sort of, you can see that fractalized in infinite ways. So there is an infinite cruelty, and it really means pretty much how energy bounces off itself. So I feel that psychology is technically behaving like a particle because it has no choice. But it's like a particle of a wave, you know, rather than the wave and particle being separate or even being connected. It's like the particle is it's like a part of a wave. Can you imagine if waves break into particles? It's interesting. We used to see light as particles. Now we're moving again towards seeing it more as waves. And I will tell you, nature has a mystery to it where it's as if it's being voiced. It's as if just like how I'm speaking, you can say these words are the efforts of a sort of self-actualization. Perhaps nature doesn't have an outer explanation if the motivation of the intelligence is coming from within. For how long will human beings fear hells and heavens? For how long will they fear hell and want to go to heaven? It's like the mule also wanted to eat the carrot. There's way more to life in its true dimensions. That it's as if the only, I would say, true religion is honesty with self. All right. I need to relocate, guys. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Okay, so I'm back, guys, to continue. You know, it's like our mind is like a prism. Light enters our eyes, and instead of becoming a color spectrum, it becomes an ideology spectrum. That means, isn't that interesting that we are fighting over ideas to be true or false, but when it comes to colors, we just didn't care. We're like red, green, blue. They're all three of, they're just colors. They're just part of the spectrum. And I feel that all ideologies which are generated or received from through the brain into the human mind, it's like we're freaking out over the color spectrum. It's as if that's it. We're fighting over language that you can say is just like color. It's like, what explanation can it have other than the design it is or what it is? I say in these talks of mine usually that there was a point where human beings were worshipping objects as the truth. After the objects were slapped out of our hands, we went to language worship. And now, from language worship, we went to language warships. So pretty much it's like a language of, it's like we are, each person is like a film, but we're fighting over frames of our perspective. It's like we're trying to put a film into a photograph and then fighting over which photograph is correct of this film that can't be put into a photograph. It's like their functionality is different. You know, we are thinking of, you could say, a self-centered view, where we are like, why are we here? Why am I here? The person says. But what if the view changes to, what function does the human being serve? The universal side. I would say the unknown world contains the known brain, and because we need space for matter to move in, that space is till the end of time the unknown factor. So either human beings will keep considering human intelligence to be relationships of matter changing in space, or we're like, okay, what if the space is like soil? And what if the matter is actually rooted in the source of matter is rooted in the roots of matter are in the unobservable universe. You see, right now, everything I'm saying, all of human knowledge, all the history books anybody has read, that's from the observable universe. But when there's an unobservable universe, it's as if a real estate agent is taking you to a house and you've only seen one room. And you're like, you know what to do. It's like you're deciding to buy the house by just one room. You know, it doesn't make sense. And so it's the same with human knowledge. We're trying to decide what reality means while having access to only one room. You know, it's like the illusion has no choice but to be destroyed into the truth. And the truth has no other choice than to create the illusion. So not only there is a duality to life, but there is a cyclical nature. Like for me, it fascinates me to see like we have even memory. That means it's not just moment to moment to moment. You know, that means, think about it, that if there was no memory, everything would be new to you all the time. You know, it's as if we are designed to take in the world. We're designed to see the world, but we're not designed to contain it. You know? That means it's like we're designed to go in the theme park, you know, but you can't like live in the theme park till the end of time. You just go there for a few rides and then you leave. It's like man wanted to find his true work. The human being wanted to find its true work, so it looked at how the world is working. But in order to truly be able to see how the world is working, man had to become the world. When man became the world, there was no reason for man to no longer be man. This is where you can say non-dualism and the unknown moving the known pretty much occupies your life. I feel that's too soon for now. We don't want people to behave like linear robots, and we don't want people to just be non-linear winds only. I feel it's a matter of looking at a landscape that nobody else sees other than you, and then making a choice about it. And then after you've made that choice, you wonder how you feel from the choice, and any sort of emotion that suggests another self means there's another world. The known has nowhere to go other than the unknown. Everything that anybody feels like they know, what happens at the end of life. Whatever way you have held your system of intelligence, it will meet the unknown. There's this Zen story where there's this sage who just gets, sorry, not sage, this monk that sat on a grass field. This monk realizes something about the nature of the realm and about its hollowness, about the emptiness of nature. Most people fear emptiness, but they don't realize it is where the greatest strength in life comes. It is where the fearless live. Those who are awake even after the body's dream is over. How the Zen story unfolds is that there's a dark minion in another dimension. The dark minion sees this. The dark minion goes to the Dark Lord, as how the story goes, and says, "Dark Lord, this human being has understood something about the truth. What do we do?" And the Dark Lord looks at the Dark Minion and says, "Don't worry about it. Human beings make beliefs out of their experiences. It doesn't matter how much a human being experiences truth directly. They usually, after some time, you just keep it in a language sculpture." So if you ask people what they're, here's the thing, it's like there's the reality of the experience, then every day that passes on from the moment of that memory, it's as if it's becoming like an echo. It's as if there is the design of the memory there, but it's becoming more faint and faint and faint, and at the same time, it's literally like consciousness, or I should say awareness, before any sort of condition of form, or before any condition of form, I would say, it is like consciousness is like the stillness of the pond, and every movement, when I was saying earlier in the talk, the mind is reinventing itself. It's as if like in every moment there's rocks. Imagine it's raining on a still pond. Every ripple is a command. Every new experience, imagine it's setting forth a surge into the whole system, into your whole psyche. whether it is a game between insects and birds, whether it is a game between humans and gods, man and God, whether it is a game between the gods and the unknown. Novelty is rendered as the all-permeating truth. When I look at my life from its beginning till now, it's just been an effort to find the new. That's it. I think that's honestly what human beings are doing. We're just trying to step beyond what we have come to know. And you can say, the ancient sages would say, know thyself, and somebody should have asked, for how long? For how long do I need to keep knowing myself? You know? And the answer is until you know yourself. Until the self and the world, like a sword and shield, can be put down and looked at without any sort of animate life force being projected into self being truth or world being truth, and you just look at it. And I will tell you, you will come to the unknown, a word for it is terra incognita. You will come to uncharted territory of your own psychological expression. So you see, there are some memories that are physical. I'll give you an example. Most people remember visible, tangible, physical events, right? They remember like when they fell from a bike when they were a kid or something. But now imagine that moment when you fell from a bike, you suddenly saw like, I don't know, like a blue light beam, you know, out of nowhere. Do you know? Kind of like just slowing things down as it's passing you by or something. Whatever, some sort of inner realm image, right? Some inner realm visualization. Let's say for a secular audience who may freak out, I would say imagine a visualization. Imagine you were in some memory of your past trying to remember what you were imagining as that memory was taking place. So you can say imagination is like a timeline inside a timeline. Pretty much it's like our imagination is being a world in our reality, and our reality is being a world from the unknown within. So it's like, it doesn't get more Inception than that, you know? Anyways, I want to go back to try to paint this part of the talk a bit more, where cyberspace equates duality and reality. We instead of cyberspace, we can call it real space. Reality can be called real space. I don't know why we're not calling it that. Real space. So from cyberspace is like, you can say, the duality of duality. Technically, we have the permission to copy paste infinitely. So technically, we can feel like we will literally feel like machine gods. We will feel like AI in cyberspace, I feel. But in real space, duality is like one color on the wheel of fortune. There's so many states of mind, and not all of them relate to human psychology. Some of them transition beyond human psychology. Some of them are echoes of events. They're echoes of sort of imagined beings, little multidimensional beings being here on this planet, and they, in some sense, they gave a command, or they put a sort of event into motion, like a domino effect. I feel, for example, in the view of, I mean, you can find an example of it in Christian thought in regards to the different prophetic figures. But in Tibetan Buddhism, for example, there was a figure named Guru Rinpoche, Guru Padmasambhava. And Guru Padmasambhava was this next level being where, like, at the age of 8, he had suddenly appeared from this lotus in the center of a pond, and had just gone, like this little 8-year-old kid out of nowhere manifested. He just goes and teaches the lake spirits, and eventually, like, a king is passing by in that moment, and the king adopts him. So very unique, like, stories are written about him. And so what Guru Padmasambhava would do was that he would in some sense journey for nowhere, out of nowhere. Like, suddenly imagine it's like you have no idea where you're going, but he would, as if like he had a sort of intuitive compass. Like his Jungian synchronicity was turned on, like Wi-Fi on a phone. And Guru Padmasambhava would go to villages that had droughts and weather problems, and he would cast away these beings, like, let's say, interdimensional beings that were disturbing it. For example, inferior beings, and he would convert them to Buddhism. Literally, that's written. If you go and look into Tibetan Buddhism, and it's remarkable, as if he was fighting the spirit that was not allowing a part of space to be alive. And it's as if I heard Manly P. Hall say once in his lectures, there's a divine unit behind every being. Now, what he meant by divine unit, I have no clue, but I feel what it means is, if we were to, it's pretty much like, when worlds are meant to merge, that's when we realize the fractal is non-dual, and technically you can say attention graduates beyond worldhood. So attention is in some sense first in the trenches of the self, then runs into the battlefields of the world, then discovers the self of the world, or discovers the self that was the world from the beginning, and then the world lives. So we are like drops of mind, you can say, joining to become like a river of minds. Now, when Guru Padmasambhava would like convert interdimensional beings to Buddhism to get rid of like the weather problems of like this farmland or something, I would say he was converting dualism into singularities. Because the word truth means there can't be truths. The word truth is a singular has a singular context. So imagine there is a realm that is just pure singular truth, then a realm where there is multiple truths, and then a realm where there was no truth, and there was a realm where before there was no truth, there was no, you can say it was unknown truth. Pretty much whatever we do as human beings, we will come back to the unknown. So to be content with the unknown is an easier mode of living. And when the worlds merge, think of as if that, again, the analogy of cyberspace where, so I'll say the analogy again if somebody tuned in and knew.
pretty much imagine there's this cyberspace machine, you press a button, you go inside it there's a school, and you go in that school and you sit in a classroom, and most of the kids in the classroom are like, they are programs inside the cyberspace simulation, and you are from outside like a biological human being inside cyberspace. And I was saying that those classmates that are programs, they are like demons to how, in some sense, the natural human being in cyberspace is like the soul, right? So that's what I was saying earlier. Now I want to say what it implies on the worlds merging is that I thought if it's leading from us having discrimination and disturbance and sort of division in one dimension, now pretty much I thought, like, what if human beings are fighting between one another? I thought, what if the dimensions are fighting? And then my mind started interchanging different verbs, as if, what if the dimensions are communicating? What if the dimensions, and if you think that the dimensions are communicating, just be playful with the sense of self. It's as if we're on the shoulder of giants and we're like, we think we're doing all the work. It is not so. There has been, space has been alive before matter could not, could remember. I honestly feel we're in symbiosis with the collective being. I feel there's clouds of collective beings around on the planet. And I feel they're being us through, in some sense, the same way you can say a bunch of people are believing, only restricting their attention to a set of language. It's as if, like, it's linguistic enslavement. It's known linguistic enslavement of an unknown dynamic being. There is nothing to believe here. Who is even believing in what? Who is disbelieving in what? From the materialistic side, man was never here. We're the hallucination of electrons, forces of mindless forces of nature. From the religious angle, God is here, man is not here. Both angles, just the religious and the, you can say the materialist and the materialist view, when they try to go to the, relate to the person, they in some sense are nullification of the person. I feel this is why the Buddha was like saying the middle way. I remember I was in a park and there were two trees that they had no leaves, and the branches of the trees were interconnected, and I saw a squirrel run up one branch and literally in a very smooth flow go onto the other branch of the other tree. And it was literally like that squirrel was mimicking the behavior of a neuron. You know? In yogic thought, I heard this really from Swami Krishnananda. And he was suggesting in his book, there was a passage where he was saying that it's as if the ultimate archetype of God is that it's like the dimensions are also different parts of the body of this cosmic being. That means there's one view where a paper with words on it is trying to tell you about truth, or is at least trying to be a mirror for your own honesty. Or our eyes never belong to time. That means sight is timeless. Sight is space. My sight has never moved, really. That means every time I've opened my eyes, it's like the sight is sight. It's like as innate, as I shouldn't say innate, as instant as existence. I remember I was talking to someone about how the difference between an existence separate from the experiencer, which is an endless mystery, and a sort of existence where the experience has extracted out from the mystery. So it's as if like we have to, in order to feel like truth, others have to be an illusion, you know, in some sense, to the candle lit in the dark room. If the candle feels its truth is from other candles, it'll be like, then where's the light of my sight coming from, you know? I'm just saying that if what I'm saying, I don't know. I'm just this. You can say this is a playful prediction. If cyberspace repeats this archetypal pattern we have seen in regards to the angel, the unknown will, man, the choice will, the choice to will, and then we have lesser, the, you can say, sorry, the unknown will, the known will, and the ignorant will. The will that doesn't even know there's a known and unknown yet. You know? It's like many pet owners love their pets, but there's a reason they don't read quantum physics to their pets, you know? Quantum physics textbooks, you know? It's like, that's the thing about love, that it's all inclusive. But when it comes to tasks of individualism, it's just a huge responsibility. They said with knowledge comes greater power. In order to have greater power, there has to be a greater container. So if knowledge is expanding the container for the power, that means our use of language is suggesting how our energy moves. How we have a relationship with language suggests how our energy moves. And so, pretty much, if cyberspace echoes, dare I say, demonology, then, because it's a repeat pattern, you can say it's as if like an apocalypse is like a world tired of thinking the story anymore, setting the story into motion. It's as if, what can one say? Imagine there was this podium, this podium that all multiverses, all realms, all dimensions could see this one podium. And imagine there could be given only one sentence. One sentence could be said and all multiverses and universes would hear it. That means pretty much one resolution to this splitting of worlds that we find ourselves in. And I would say, first, the world moves yourself, then self moves the world. And that is self-actualization. That means by your energetic and attention-based nature, you can re-implement your own creation to itself. That means technically when somebody says, who are you? Let's say that question was asked, the answer is a creative process, isn't it? So the ultimatum is, once there is contentment with all worlds, chaos and order were never in the room. We can say the body's game is to move. You can say the mind's game is to move as an image. And then if we went to the soul, the pure unknown, it's just beyond will. Because it's beyond will, it goes beyond identity. So worlds merge either when there is no sense of self keeping them separate, or when the both worlds were in the same spot. There is no self. So technically, this relationship where I was saying in religious thought, God is here, man isn't. In secular thought, man is here, God isn't. And I feel that it's this now. It's the case of man is here, and it's either world is here, man isn't, or man is here, world isn't. So we have to, if we were to truly access the, let's say, poetically hyperdimensional intelligence of nature, you cannot be a person. It is not for a person. So when worlds are meant to merge, the search of eons stops. That means inevitably, whatever, let's say again, in whatever time plane we find ourselves, you know, there is story, Zen story. There's these two palace guards. One of them asks the other one, there's a flag there in front of them. One of them says, "Hey man, you see this flag? It's the wind that's moving. It's the flag is moving." Sorry, he says the flag is moving. And his friend looks at it, he's like, "No man, it's the wind that's moving the flag." And they're arguing, they're bored like palace guards back in the day. And so one of them says it's the wind, the other says it's the flag, and coincidentally there's an enlightened sage just walking by. And they go ask the sage, and they're like, "Sage, which is it? You know, what is moving?" And the sage smiles and says, "Your mind is moving." So separated worlds merge when there's a greater movement. So you can say individual suffering is resolved through collective movement. Movement is the divine. Movement is the unknown. In a strange way, if we treat stillness and silence as just like the emptiness of the page, the movement of the writer's pen is like the divine. And so imagine every day you wake up, you are like, the planet is like writing your nature. We are honestly like nature's imagination. So nature is either imagining itself as a human being, or the human being was always beyond nature, Because if you consider yourself causally beyond your world, that means you are the mover of the universe now. And you can kind of look at this in life, right? You can look at any type of human being and wonder if they to themselves exist in a causal position, or they feel like the world is dictating their life, you know? And imagine angels in cyberspace are like the moderators of the cyberspace. They're like the programmers or the angels, you know? This world is an interesting place. You can appear to yourself in endless ways. You can move in accordance to anything, you know? Like in the outer realms, it's incredible. We have mobility, you know? Some days I just wake up and I'm like, am I being existence right now? So this existence is really, it's like, how do you treat it? That means, is your energy based on memory? So pretty much I will tell you, I have looked at various moments of knowing how the self is happening, and I've looked at various moments where I've known what's happening in the world. But it's like it's like how we know the self and how we know the world. That it's like they are lights being projected. They're projected from the same source. And I will tell you, divinity will just be unknown. The unknown, literally the word unknown. Uh, we think there has to be first the known, and then we can perhaps have the known not be there and then the unknown. That means we need maybe the known to be conscious that there's an unknown. But it doesn't mean the unknown wasn't there first. So I will say that um, it is time that we move, or at least unleash an ideological force in human civilization, and in some sense call it unknownism. And let's just call it that, unknownism, you know? And what is unknownism? Unknownism is that attention, literally, you can have different origin stories, you know? In the sense that we either teleported here out of nowhere, or you opened your eyes in a world, or you're on an island, but it's on a cosmic scale, and you have to just find whatever tool to just endure to figure out more about what you can do. Unknownism means the river no longer has the drop's identity. Be free, for the ocean awaits. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll be on Discord for those interested. Blessings. And you know, I was, for some reason, I just remembered before I end off, Carl Jung has this thing. Carl Jung is a very advanced, I would say, communicator, and this psychologist was inspired by alchemical thought, like the wisdom of the alchemists, to say that when he was asked what is God, he said God is a circle, where the center of it is everything and the circumference is nothing. That means when you look outwards, there is nothing. When you look inwards, you are the source of everything. You see how cool that is? Because and where the antenna is, that's where the signal is received. So I am saying that angels are angles, okay? Are angles of the truth. They are dimensions. I honestly feel the archangels was another way of saying they were, of course they're personified in religious texts, but I'm saying I feel they were dimensions. They were another way. They didn't have the word for dimensions there. It's the archetype for dimensions. The dimensions of the one world. The beams of the one truth. Of the one sun. It's like space was a father and it was like, hey son, where are you? And then the sun was like, I'm right here, shining. We have been conditioned to literally, like how people go shopping, to to buy ideology and then wear it. And this is like, it's fine to, wear clothing, but it is on another level, it's as if like, there's the freedom of your true being surpasses any container. And when Carl Jung says this circle thing about God, Sri Nisargadatta, I see a parallel there where he says, when I see that I am nothing, that is wisdom. When I see that I am everything, that is love, and in between my life moves. We are the movement in between the truth and illusion, therefore rendering us the unknown witness beyond them. Bada bing, bada boom. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bless.